Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
Welcome back to the Dental Wealth Podcast. I am so glad to have you back. Today, what I want to talk about is net worth growth. And I specifically want to talk about is what does it look like to grow your net worth? I think the reason that so many of you decided that you were going to listen to this podcast in particular was that you were thinking, well, I want to grow my dental wealth, right? I want to grow my net worth. And so the challenge is this. What does it look like to grow your net worth? What does that actually look like? So on today's podcast, I really want to talk about specifically how you grow your net worth. What does that actually look like? And what's the result if you do that? Like, what does that actually look like? And so I recently had a doctor call me up. They had a four-op operatory. And, if you think about that, you can't really do a lot with that. I mean, you might be able to do some expanded hours and bring an associate in, but you're almost, because of limitations of capacity, one of the things that's happening is you're not able to pull, that doctor is not able to pull as much out of the chair without transferring their own, production. So when this person went to go grow into a larger operation, that requires capital, that requires investment. And in the long run, what ends up happening is in the new location where they've got their own building and they have real estate income, and they have especially long-term real estate income that's significant. They have the ability to have other doctors in. They have the ability to have the quality of life, which is really important, because one of the things I want for anyone listening to this is be able to have the quality of life they want, right? Which is margin of time, being able to do what you want, and margin of money. So as moving into this new operation caused some stress, right? And it caused some, before they were a small location and there wasn't much stress. It was, the doctor and Susie and Sally, and that was about it. And so before that, there wasn't a lot of stress. And so there was some margin, but it had its limits. And I want you to hear me about this. It had its limits, not just economically, not just what it could produce, but the amount of time the doctor could have with their family without taking a significant reduction in their own income. So the people that, I talk to and work with, and then I hope the people that listen to this podcast understand the idea of this is that I want you to grow your own income, but be able to pull back from dentistry simultaneously. That means that, and by the way, I do this all the time with clients, but I want you to think about this, is that I can grow and I'm more productive out of the chair. And in fact, I could teach other associates to grow, but sometimes that doesn't always, right? When you're growing, it creates stress. Think about this when you were first starting your dental practice and you were, maybe you were younger and maybe you are young right now. Maybe you're listening to this thinking, I just got out of dental school a few years ago, but there's a lot of stress, isn't there? And so what ends up happening is we start to get to this place where the stress level starts, right? We start to get used to it, maybe even complacent, and growth starts to level off. And then what we do is we make a jump on what they call the sigmoid curve. So we make a change in our operation. And when that happens, it can create some more stress. But stress sometimes is a good thing, right? Pushing yourself, creating a little anxiety is sometimes good. It means that you're actually pushing yourself. I mean, there's people that have made statements like, every day I try to scare myself, right? I don't know if I try to do that, but the point is that you're trying to push yourself out of your comfort zone. The wealthiest people get wealthy because they push themselves out of their comfort zone. If you could just stay in your comfort zone all the time and become financially wealthy, maybe that's why you play the lotto, maybe, right? I mean, the whole idea, and most people get wealthy, is because they've pushed themselves out of their comfort zone. You pushed yourself out of your comfort zone probably when you went to dental school. You probably push yourself out of the comfort zone when you do a new procedure. You push yourself out of the comfort zone when, right, anytime you're trying to have significant change in your life, you're typically putting yourself out of your comfort zone. And so I want you to think about that as understanding. I just want you to hear me. when you go to grow your net worth, at some point in there, it's probably going to create some stress. And that might be some investment and some anxiety around investing capital. It might be some investment around hiring team. It might be some stress around management and maybe managing a larger operation. But those are all natural, and it's a great thing to think about because, I went back to this doctor and I said, why are you stressed? And the truth of it was one of the reasons why they were stressed was they took off pretty much half of December. And those are decisions that created additional stress that didn't really need to be there. And so, why did they take off half of December when they knew that they had just opened up a new operation? Doesn't make right. And we look at that and go, well, that probably added to, so that's probably not the best planning. And so we look at this and say, look, the truth is, let me tell you what's going to end up happening to this doctor. And so because growing your net worth is a process, growing is a process. It doesn't matter whether you're going to the gym to self-improve, whether you're working on your marriage or working on your finances. The truth is that growing, anytime you grow, can create some stress. And it is a process. And it's interesting to me how many people come back to me, and they say, I didn't know how much I was growing during the process. But it's like when you look at a patient, right? When you look at a patient's mouth, you can quickly know exactly what needs to be done for that patient, right? When you're doing a treatment plan, you can see the entire process, right? So you can see it from maybe getting them out of pain all the way to maybe even cosmetic work, or, maybe it's implants or whatever it ends up being. You can see it the whole way. And in fact, you're so experienced that you can see it, right? Discomfort the patient will be in, maybe throughout the process at certain points, there's stress, maybe financial stress of paying for the procedure, maybe some stress along the way of maybe just having anxiety in the dental chair and time away from work. And so there's that. But when you look at it from a clinician standpoint, you go, yeah, but I understand what this is going to look like at the end. And even though to get this procedure done, you might go through stress, what does it look like at the end? Right? That patient walks out happy and they walk out excited and they usually either have more confidence or less pain or whatever it ends up being. And so from my position, I can see, just like you can from a clinician, I can quickly see all the way through and from the beginning to the end what this is going to look like. See, I know for a fact 100% this same doctor will wake up, probably end up within no time working a lot less clinically, have multiple doctors, have more cash flow, have more money, have more time with their family, have more money to spend time with their family, and their life will become like a lot better. Well, why doesn't everybody do that then, right? That sounds pretty simple. Then all you got to do is right, push yourself in some of these areas and grow. Well, because the first sign of stress, what do most people do? Stop. I mean, you can relate that to physical fitness, right? I mean, there's a reason why people don't run a lot, right? Sometimes it hurts, right? Going to the gym all the time or giving up their fried chicken or whatever it ends up happening, to get to a certain place, you probably have to make some sacrifices and you have to go through some uncomfortability and stress. And this really goes down to, are you pushing yourself, right? Are you challenging yourself? Are you dealing with uncomfortability and stress as you're listening to this? Because I'm going to tell you, as someone who's been doing this and work with well over 1,000 dentists, I'm going to tell you part of the most successful people that I work with understand that there's stress in growing it, but they're the ones who get the most time with their family, the most cash to do what they want. They have the highest net worth because at some point they challenged and they pushed through some of that difficult time. They didn't complain about the difficult time. They looked at ways to get around it. Now, that part's easy to do because it's a formula. It's business is a science, right? Business and growing net worth is science. And so there's a strategic plan, right? I had a doctor, I remember it was about a year ago. She said to me, "Oh my gosh, Eric, I did this thing you told me to do." And it was a pretty dramatic thing in her practice. And she goes, "It worked." And I was like, well, of course it worked, right? I didn't guess. This is a science. And growing your net worth, believe it or not, is a science. It doesn't mean it's easy, right? Just like go talk to a personal trainer, right? If you asked a personal trainer, think about this for a moment. Ask a personal trainer, like if you have one, if you know a friend who is, ask them what percentage of people they work with truly hit their goals, like all the way through. Ask them that and see what you'll find is, or the person that starts with January 1st, are they there on December 31st? What percentage do you think, like in America, think about that for a second. I mean, what percentage of people on January 1st sit down with their goals, dreams, aspirations, and physical fitness goals? Let's just take that area. And they set these goals, and how many of them are still holding true on December 31st? A very, very small percentage. And so when you look at that and say, well, how do you think do you think it's any different for finance? Do you think that's any different for business? It's the exact same thing. The reason why most people set goals, how many people do you think tell me their business goal on January 1st? And how many are holding true to that on December 30th? Well, that's one of the reasons at Tower Leadership, we create a process. The reason why we create a process to keep you from falling back when you, right, if you have any challenges. And so think about this for a minute. That's why, by the way, people need someone. That's why I pay a trainer, and that's why I have coaches, and that's why you should have a coach and people on your side, because someone's got to be holding you accountable. Because when you're growing your net worth, when you're growing your business, you are going to hit a point of stress. You are going to hit a point where you're not sure what to do. And here's the reason why you push through. On the other side, just remember 99% probably won't push through. They won't hit the potential they have the ability to hit. Not even close. And, it's interesting. One of the things I told someone one day, they said, Eric, you've done over 1,000 financial one-on-ones with doctors. And if you had one piece of advice, what would it be? And I said, what have you gained the most? And I said, it's pretty simple. They just have no idea of what they can accomplish. And so I look at that and go, look, if these people knew what they could do, they would push through. If people knew what they could accomplish, right? And by the way, that's business, finance, marriage, right? All of these things. But if people knew what it could look like, they would push through. But oftentimes they don't, and then they find enough friends that tell them it's okay to not be successful, and then they all have the same excuses, and they sit in a room and kind of say it's okay to not be successful because we all have the same excuse. I know some of you are listening right now thinking the exact same thing. So think about that. And I'm not beating you up. I'm just letting you know the patterns that I see. Just like you see the same patterns in patients, I see the same patterns in business and with clients. And I see the people who become terrifically successful and the ones that I wish had. And the difference is really, the truth is that it's the ability to push through. And you guys know that, listening to this. And so I want you to let you know that there's a process to grow your net worth significantly. A dental practice is literally one of the greatest investments in the world. And I literally mean the world. You have approximately a 30% rate of return with a 1% risk rate. That is unheard of. And so you've got to learn how to invest and maximize. I would tell you flat out, if you're not maximizing this investment, I'm just not to be, rude, but the truth is, if you have $1 million practice after 30 years, that's not success. I'm just being honest with you. I mean, if you just had hygiene patients over 30 years, keep coming back every 6 months and added just a handful, a month, I mean, you would be at $1 million over 30 years. I mean, when you start looking at the potential that's lost, well, the potential never got there because of the fact that we didn't push the needle and push ourselves. And so now you have to know how to push yourself, right? Don't just be reckless. That's not what I'm telling you to do. Don't be reckless, but you certainly need to know that as you're growing your net worth, there's going to be some uncomfortable days. And by the way, being an entrepreneur is like that, right? Some days, like, you walk in and you feel like you got it all together, and you look at the cash flow position and cash is pouring in, and you go, man, I got this. Like I'm killing it and life's great. And then you walk in and then your hygienist quits and you're like, damn it, I thought I had it together, and look at, it's all falling apart. And then it goes well, and then that's part of being an entrepreneur. That's why that's part of it, right? And you push through that, don't you? Or I hope you do. And so it's also looking through the challenges. Now, someone might be listening to this going, hey, I'm highly successful and I've got a multi-million-dollar practice and I've got some multiple associates, so this doesn't apply to me. Not true. Not true at all. If anything, I would tell you flat out, and the people that, vast majority of people that come to me are highly successful, and I'm always pushing them. One of the things they tell me is that you don't ever stop, do you? Because the truth is that there's always the next level. Now, you might not want it, but you need to understand there's always a next level of growing your net worth. Why do I want you to grow your net worth? Because I want you to have the ability to impact your family and your team and your community and yourself and your self-education and development and all the things you can do by doing that. But I'd love to tell you that there's never a challenge, but that's just not true. So I want you to understand, like this doctor that I'm talking about pushed themselves, and there's a momentary area of stress. But the truth is, I can guarantee you, and I actually looked at that doctor and I said, look, you and I are going to talk, and you're going to smile and say, greatest thing I ever made, decision I ever made. But how many, and by the way, I'm proud of that doctor because they pushed through and they made a decision that many of their peers would not have, and they would have stayed right at a stagnant place and stayed for the rest of their careers at a stagnant place. So I'm proud of that doctor. And they're, by the way, going to be high net worth and highly successful. But I want you to hear this, as some of you might have picked up the Dental Wealth podcast thinking to yourself, well, I'm going to listen to this and I'm going to get rich. And by the way, I can give you all kinds of ways to grow your net worth, and we can talk money, and I love capital investments and where to invest and how to invest and all those things. But I do need you to hear me and say, there will be anxiety and stress. And look, not everything I can tell you is going to be rosy. Now, the good part of the anxiety stress, I don't want to leave on a bad note, so let me just say this. There's anxiety and stress so that you can get to the place you really want to be, which is, right, the guy who never, or the gal that never pressed themselves, who never challenged themselves. Let me tell you what their life looks like. They get to retirement, they sell hopefully they've saved enough, okay? Hopefully they've saved enough, which they probably have not. They sell their practice for not even close to really what they were hoping. By the time they pay taxes and debt, there's literally nothing left. Even if they've got $3 million in an investment account after all that, that's $150 a year. Hardly anywhere near a glamorous, and they're literally going to be on a fixed income for life. That's what that looks like, just so you know. And they'll probably go back to work for a few more years because their income dropped significantly. Versus the doctor who pushed through, who challenged themselves, who had net worth, who decided to add other doctors, who created facilities, maybe even created multiple organizations or multiple locations. That doctor, their income goes up every single year. They hold on to it. Their growth goes up. Their income goes up. Their assets go up every single year. They have the ability to come and go as they want, see the patients they want, and they have the quality of life because they weren't afraid and they pushed through. So I'm going to challenge you as you're listening to this and saying, what area in my practice maybe have I gotten stagnant, or that I'm not pushing through, or that I'm not challenging myself? Where is that area, and where do I need to put some emphasis at that would have a dramatic impact? And that's how you start growing your net worth, is really starting to focus on those areas that are scary. And then, you go find someone like myself who can help you. It doesn't have to be me. Sure, I'd love to help you, or my team would love to help you, but find someone who knows capital investments. Not someone trying to sell you something or selling you some mutual fund. Someone who knows capital investments. That's the ability to invest back into your dental practice, and where to invest that money and how to invest that money. And then let's go to work. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed. Hey, hit subscribe, hit like, share with a friend. Appreciate you guys being here. Have a great week.